provide a lot of support outside of the kind of working hours or full-time hours, if you like.
If you want to understand more about what we do at Tech Returners, find out a bit more about our courses and a bit of background about where our Tech Returners are coming from, please get in touch at hello@techreturners.com. We all know we've got digital skills talent shortage. We prove at Tech Returners that there's talent there that wants to enter and re-enter technology. We just need to create accessible routes for people to enter.
Really, really important for us to invest in the next generation of talent. So I'm absolutely delighted that we've got a bunch of people that are ready to go, ready to join the BBC and really add some great value to our organisation.
I think I love the fact that they were able to apply their current business knowledge into the domain. So they come through with a level of maturity we don't necessarily see in other candidates.
Genuinely speaking, I was astonished by the quality of some of the stuff that we're seeing. I didn't expect the apps to be that feature complete by this stage, given that there were 15 weeks on a course and 2 weeks to work on them.
I think the model that Tech Returners has got, helping people who come from different commercial backgrounds, different walks of life, is something that we sort of really lean towards.
The main focus for us is accessibility. So we do things in evening classes, we do daytime classes, but also we provide a lot of support outside of the kind of working hours or full-time hours, if you like.
If you want to understand more about what we do at Tech Returners, find out a bit more about our courses and a bit of background about where our Tech Returners are coming from, please get in touch at hello@techreturners.com.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Beckie. I am co-founder and CEO at Tech Returners and your host for this afternoon. So, been a popular one, this one. Near enough 80 people signed up for this webinar, all about virtual imposter syndrome. So, imposter syndrome is a feeling that we feel that we're not good enough. It can make us question things and instill the fear of being found out. In some research, it states that near enough 70% of people experience imposter syndrome. But in my opinion, I believe that everybody does at some point or another. Recently, we have been thrown into this world of being just with our thoughts, spending a lot of time in our own company, not having the coffee chats in the company kitchen or at the side of the desk, and what effect that is having. I've experienced virtual imposter syndrome regularly, and from the conversations with others, I believe it is now a thing. So today's panel is going to explore the topic in more detail and share their thoughts, experiences, and more importantly, how to manage it so it doesn't stop you doing things or recognising those areas of achievement and importance. So just to explain how this afternoon is going to run, I'm going to quickly pass over to our panel to introduce themselves. And then we've got a set of questions that I'm going to pose to each individual panellist. We've got a full panel speakers today, we've got 5, so we've got a lot to fit in within the hour. At the end, I would like to open the virtual floor open to questions. However, we might not get a chance to go through them all. If we don't, like we did on Tuesday, we'll make sure we'll gather those questions, send them out to our panellists, and then form those responses and make sure everybody has those responses to their questions. So I'm just going to pass over to our panellists to introduce themselves. So I'll start with Claire.
Hi, Beckie.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, good, you can hear me. Okay, so hi, I'm Claire. I'm a test lead at Money Supermarket based in Manchester. I've worked in tech for about 18 years now. I started off in IT support, software support roles, and then been a tester for about the last 12-13 years. I've worked in companies producing financial ERP software and security software, and yeah, now I work at Money Supermarket, helping out the testers, working on mobile apps. So that's me.
Brilliant, thanks Claire. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna Sutton. I am Chief Executive and co-founder of The Data Shed. I've experienced lots of imposter syndrome in my life because I came from a marketing background, moved into the tech world, ended up leading a tech business, and I found that journey really quite challenging. So this is a whole new string to that bow.
Brilliant, thanks Anna. Kirsty?
Hello, I'm Kirsty James. My main business is Colony Networking. I do run networking events, and I also help people with their networking skills and strategy. I also have the license for the TEDx Warrington. I do some other things around networking, connecting people with LinkedIn Local. And I run a business centre as well. So interesting times, lots of imposter syndrome going on, and has in my life for sure. I spend a lot of time trying to help people out of their networking imposter syndrome and coaching them to get over that. And for myself, I'm experiencing running imposter syndrome at the moment as I've taken up running, and my business centre has completely turned on its head and has become a food distribution centre. So I'm having to have a crash course in running a completely different set of projects and programs, things I've never had experience in. So I think you always have something in which we're learning and we become imposters.
Brilliant, thanks Kirsty. And Gozi?
You got it right.
Yay!
So my name's Ngozi Weller. I'm co-founder of Aurora Wellness, which is a mental health and wellbeing consultancy. I am also a self-confessed, fully fledged, but recovering imposter. So I started my company a few years ago now, having left my career in oil and gas. And it was a decade and a half I worked in oil and gas, and I burnt out. And I had spent the majority of that time suffering or struggling with imposter feelings throughout that career. But I didn't understand what they were until I started coaching myself. And so now what we do at Aurora is to help everybody understand that good mental health and well-being in the workplace is a fundamental right, so that nobody else has to struggle with these feelings of imposter throughout their career. That's me.
Thank you. And Mary?
Hi, I'm Mary Hunter. I'm the Global Chief People Officer at Columbus. We're a technology organisation, and I'm responsible for the training, the development, the attracting of our people. And my biggest passion is inspiring people to realise their full potential and get the best out of themselves. And this topic is particularly pertinent to me as when I returned from my first maternity leave, I had imposter syndrome, so I wanted to share, take part, and help others overcome that if they get that.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're going to move on to the questions, and I'm going to come to you first, Claire. So our working world now is entirely virtual. On one hand, hiding behind a screen when you're feeling less than confident might seem something like that you prefer. But now, several weeks into lockdown, how do you feel the new virtual world is affecting imposter syndrome?
Okay, so I definitely feel like, I think it's important to say first, I think working virtually in the current situation is probably, there's a lot of extra things we're all dealing with, in addition to the thing, if you were just, if it was just a normal kind of, you know, the normal world, normal scenarios that were, you know, and people were working remotely that way. But I think the lack of interaction, the lack of human interaction that you get with virtual working can be a bit of a problem, and something I've been experiencing recently, and it's probably exacerbated by the general lack of human interaction everywhere at the moment. It's kind of, you miss those little nuances of, you know, people's body language and how they react to you in certain situations. And it's very easy if you kind of feel like you've made a mistake or you've done something wrong, or because you can't gauge people's reactions, for those for these insecurities to become a lot bigger and snowball, and you can end up sat there thinking, oh my gosh, they think I've made a mistake, and everyone thinks I'm terrible at my job, and you don't really know what people are sat there thinking. And I'm certainly not sat there thinking people are terrible at their jobs when somebody else makes a mistake, but it's very easy to feel like that's what everybody's thinking about you, and this feeds into this imposter syndrome. I found myself, you definitely find yourself worrying more what people think about you. I'm, you know, if looking after a child as well, and lots of people have other responsibilities, and everyone's dealing with their own things at the moment, and it can feel, you can get this kind of sense of guilt that you're not doing enough, that you're not doing a good enough job because maybe you're distracted or slightly unfocused or kind of pulled around between different things, and you can feel like you're just not doing enough in general, and then the perfectionist tendencies come in as well. So it definitely, for me, I think working virtually is that lack of interaction, and it just makes it much more difficult to gauge how kind of people are reacting to you. So yes, I think that's, you know, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one around that, gauging people's reactions, because texts or Slack messages, emails can be just misinterpreted in so many different ways. Have you experienced that, and have you found solutions of actually overcoming that?
So I've definitely experienced it, and you know, when everyone's busy, then their messages might be quite short if you put a message in Slack or whatever instant messaging kind of solution you're using, and then you know, you can start thinking, oh gosh, you know, what, they've been really short with me, or they're not happy, or I've done something wrong. But I think we've found that actually trying to have as much as you can be face-to-face, but have video calls, so you get that little bit of face-to-face interaction with people, or even voice calls, I guess, just kind of speaking to people. Generally, it's, you know, it's very easy to send hundreds of messages, but sometimes it can make you feel a lot better just speaking to somebody, seeing somebody's face, seeing, you know, what their reactions are to you, and you know, that definitely has helped allay some of those feelings as well. So yeah, I think that's a big thing for me. Just try and get as much interaction as you can as well. And even if it's not related to work things, I know that some teams at Money Supermarket, they've been having kind of just team chats, or making time to log on and have a call and just chat to people. I know the testers in our team, we all got together and just had a catch up, and it does just make you feel a bit better. And I know not everyone likes being on video calls, and sometimes it can feel a bit draining and exhausting, but it does, you know, having that bit of interaction with people, I feel kind of has really helped me.
That's an interesting point, but you just mentioned at the end around people feeling that they don't want to be on calls. I know certainly over the past 7 weeks, the feeling of like, I could actually just duck out of this call, or, you know, I might say no to being a panelist on an event, or a speaker at an event, because I feel that virtual imposter syndrome creeping up. Have you found that with your team, or even with yourself?
I think, I'm not sure I think sometimes people have kind of not wanted to, you know, be on calls because they are quite kind of drained of, you know, being on calls, not necessarily because of imposter syndrome. In this case, no.
Yeah. Have you felt it? How have you felt in terms of when you felt that virtual imposter, of actually how you've overcome it?
So I think it's important to, and I was chatting to my manager about this yesterday. I had a one-to-one yesterday, and I've done talks on imposter syndrome, and have kind of given out kind of various bits of advice to other people, and then sometimes you find yourself not following your own advice. And he was saying, you know, just keep a record of the things that, you know, you do well, that you do achieve, the small achievements. So if you're having a rubbish day, you're feeling, you know, you've got those feelings of imposter syndrome, the I'm not good enough, the I'm not doing a good enough job feelings, that you've got something to reflect on, some kind of small achievements, and kind of giving yourself, you know, trying not to give yourself a hard time, because things are even more kind of intense at the moment than usual, and, you know, people shouldn't, you know, necessarily be trying to push themselves too much. And, you know, give yourself a break, realise that this isn't a normal situation at the moment. Everyone's dealing with something, and that, you know, you need to kind of be kind to yourself. I know it's been said a lot at the moment, but, you know, be kind to yourself. You know, you might not be at the same level of productivity, you might not be quite as focused, you might have other distractions, but it doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job, or that you're an imposter, or that you don't deserve to be where you are. It means that everyone's finding it difficult to work in this situation.
Yeah, very much so. That balanced with feeling it in work, and then, like you said right at the beginning, feeling it. I feel it as a parent as well when those text messages come through of the color-coded timetables and the activities and the baking, and I'm thinking, God, I've not even had time to even sit down and have my lunch today, let alone think about actually going baking or anything like that. So I think we're feeling it in different environments as well. Moving on to you, Anna. What factors would you say are exacerbating imposter syndrome, either for yourself or people in your network that you've spoken to, and why do you think that it is?
I've got to say I agree with pretty much everything that Claire, well, all of the things that Claire's just said. I think I've actually had my coaching session this morning. I meet with a leadership coach once every, well, virtually met today, once every 3 weeks. She's helped me a lot in the last 2.5 years in terms of making the transition into role of chief exec, and I talk regularly with her about some of the things that impact us. And I think the thing that we've been discussing this morning is the break in the immediate feedback loop that you get from being in a room full of people, and being able to read the room and understand how your message is landing, and that instantaneous, like the body language, like you were talking about, Claire, the instantaneous feedback that you get from watching how people are processing what you're saying to them. And because and I know there's like 40 odd people out there sat watching us right now, I can't see them, and normally when you're in a panel event you can kind of see the audience and you can see them nodding, or you can kind of gauge what the reaction is to what you're saying to know whether you want to follow through on that point or whether you want to change direction. And I think it can be really difficult to overanalyze in this situation. Excuse the noise, I'm sat in the back of a camper van trying to avoid my 6 and 8 year old from actually gate crashing the call, so that's why I've got a virtual background on. I think one of the things that we were also discussing this morning is actually there's no commute. So there's no kind of natural boundary in your day that kind of breaks your home life from your work life. So you find that things kind of bleed together, and God, what a very noisy van, excuse me. We find that all of these thought processes kind of stay in your mind through the evening, and you kind of replay things over and over, and there's just no kind of natural break in your day that allows you to kind of put that stuff to bed, and then you move on to the next stage of your evening. And I think there's quite a lot of, again, being kind to yourself and working out how you can process that. So when I get to the end of my day today, I'll take the kids out for a walk, and it'll be that kind of walk that I use to kind of break that cycle, to kind of stop that process. I think it's also really important to make sure that you check in with people. So if you've I've got a big meeting this afternoon where I'm doing a presentation, I'm landing some quite big messages. I'll be calling people in that meeting afterwards to find out how they feel about it, to get that feedback loop that you won't necessarily see. So it's different ways of communicating and different ways of kind of gathering that impact assessment that you would normally get from a face-to-face that you're just not getting right now. Things like that. And I think the other thing is, and again, Claire alluded to it, that we're all dealing with multiple roles almost in the same moment a lot of the time at the moment. So actually there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of mum guilt, there's a lot of dad guilt, there's a lot of some of us are caring for people. I'm running a team of 40 people. I'm trying to stop my mum running rampant on the golf course, and I'm trying to make sure my kids are still fed, and also school them. And I think one of the best things I've done for my own mental health is mute the WhatsApp groups of the perfect mothers doing the perfect timetable and doing all of these amazing things, because it's almost too much. You've got to stop judging yourself up against what other people are doing and work out what the best thing is for you, and try and stick to your core values and work out if your message that you're giving and the decisions that you're making actually are aligned with your values. Then that's got to be good enough, and you've got to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Just around those WhatsApp groups and the Instagram posts and things like that. I was listening to a podcast the other day just around self-esteem and understanding, for your own self-worth, stop trying to compare yourself. And if you feel that you are, maybe not follow them, take yourself out of those groups, etc., because it's not going to do you any good by thinking you're not there and you're not good enough, etc., and that's going around in your head. And I also like your point around not having that commute and that distance, it is all blurring into one. I don't know whether other people are finding this, but I know certainly am, because I've got 2 young children, and it isn't necessarily I can do work in one chunk. It's like a chunk here, a chunk there, and there is no separation at the moment around work and then home time. It's sort of all blending into one. One of the questions I wanted to ask you around was, you mentioned around the importance of checking in with your team, and you said you've got a team of 40. What about the people that might not necessarily have the confidence and feel that they can't speak up? How do you know that how are they feeling within your organisation?
I forced them to talk to me. I think one of the things that I've always been really cautious of is that because I don't necessarily, as the team's got bigger, you don't necessarily see everybody every day, and obviously not at all anymore. And one of the things that I'd already kind of put into place, me and my business partner Ed, we had directors' lunches, so we'd take somebody out for lunch every week and we'd have that check-in. That's obviously not happening anymore, and it's a bit weird kind of sat at a desk in your house eating a sandwich with somebody else at their desk in their house eating their sandwich. That's just too weird. What I've asked, what we're going to do now is we're changing that for 15-minute coffees, but I'm going to do 3 or 4 of those a week to kind of check in with different team members. And I'm starting with people who don't directly work for me, so people who are who kind of work on the other side of the business, to kind of just check in with where they're at. And I also have like a couple of people who I know are kind of good pulse points for the general overview of the shed, who kind of have lots of relationships and who are quite good indicators or barometers of what's actually going on in the wider team. So I kind of check in with them fairly regularly to see how theirs going. Fortunately, one of them is my PA, and she talks to everybody, so she kind of tends to highlight to me if she thinks there's a concern somewhere. She's also one of the mental health first aiders, so she's regularly in contact with most of the team, well, in fact all of the teams, just not some more than others, and that's a really helpful link for me to make sure that we're keeping our finger on the pulse and working out what's bothering people. One of the other things that we did is we split, so there's 40 of us, and then we've got there's me, Ed, and then a senior team of 6. We split the team into 8 groups, and we've all got our own keeping in touch group. I've nicked something for maternity leave, so we've all got our kit groups. And it's just for nonsense chat, photos of cats and dogs and stuff, but it means that we're all kind of keeping tabs on somebody all the time. And that's really given me really great feedback in terms of the decisions that we're making, because I think one of the things that I've really struggled with from an imposter syndrome is more, do I have the right to make these decisions about my team's health? I think the boundaries and the impact of the decisions that we've been making as leaders over the last 8-9 weeks have been so immense about how, and I felt so responsible for making the right decision and getting that message across in a way that isn't going to stress the team out, that makes it as easy for them as possible, because it's hard, right? It's hard for everybody. And if I can take a bit of pressure off, then that's great. But it's like, oh my God, do I have the right to do that? That's a really, I found that really difficult, both the ethics of it and making those choices. And the day we made the decision to shut the office was probably the best and most relieving day of this last year, because I knew then it was their decision if they wanted to go to the supermarket, it's their decision if they wanted to go out. I was no longer asking them to come in anymore. So yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster, I think, from making big decisions, second guessing yourself, but making sure that you ask for feedback and closing that loop, really.
Yeah. And when you talk about making those decisions, I can really empathise with you in terms of that. And I don't know how you felt, but I felt that being honest and transparent around, you know, how hard it is in terms of the decisions you have to make as a business owner. How have you felt in that respect?
I think I'm a huge advocate for authentic leadership. It's one of the things I work on really hard with my coach. I think if you know you've been authentic yourself, it's and you share that with your team, then they're going to go with you. I have to say though, I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with somebody. I think I had to toy it very much with how much stress I shared with the team about how I was feeling versus actually providing them with a solid leader and trying to portray I wanted to give them something they could trust and hold on to, and it felt like somebody was in control of making decisions, and I didn't know how much of my anxiety over that decision making process to share with them versus giving them some sort of comfort that somebody was in control somewhere. So that was kind of a really difficult balancing act for me, to try and juggle the authenticity versus trying to give them a really clear message that they could believe in.
And how do you feel that you did that?
I think I found it really stressful because I wasn't able to go, God, this is a nightmare, which is what they're used to hearing from me. Because I felt, it was tough. It was really hard. I mean, I'm very fortunate that actually my business partner is also my husband and in the house there, so we could like sit and really talk about it and work out the way we wanted to go. But I felt very strongly that I wanted to give a very clear message, and the team felt that we were making a decision based on their well-being, and I think in that way we did quite well.
Brilliant, fantastic. And just to close off, just around that feedback loop, what feedback have you received from your team through these past 7 weeks around how they're feeling, how you feel that's been handled?
We've had lots of really positive feedback. We've got an open feedback channel in Teams where people drop feedback, generally positive for everybody, not just us, and that's been really great to see how people are kind of staying on top of that. People are really honest with us. So I got an email from somebody going, I really don't like the fact that you've taken the director's lunches out of my diary. I was like, okay, let's talk about it. So I got on the phone, we had a chat. I told him what I was doing instead. He apologised for being grouchy, and I was like, you don't need to apologise to me. This is exactly the right thing to be doing. Let's have that conversation. So I think the team genuinely know that we're just trying to do the best for them. And they really buy into that. They have, I think, give us another few weeks, there'll probably be more grumbles, because everyone's just being really grateful to kind of get through this emergency mode. Everyone's just been pulling together in emergency mode and trying to pull in the same direction. I think as we move more into this new normal and people get really fed up with sitting in the living room with the kids swinging off the lampshades and doing whatever else they're doing instead of any schoolwork, I think people will start to get a little bit more fed up with it. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Brilliant, thank you. Just moving on to yourself, Kirsty. Imposter syndrome and networking, those words come very much hand in hand. But we all know networking is always an important part in business. But virtual networking provides an entirely different challenge. You talked about your experience of having your own groups and being involved in them. What tips would you share for feeling more confident online and in this new world of virtual events and networking?
Right, okay, gosh, well, where to start? I'll probably run out of time, I'm guessing. I think, they go hand in hand. I think the whole imposter syndrome, let's put it into the context now of the networking world. And if we're working on that statistic, about 70% of people experience at some point, and I truly believe you're right, Beckie, I think everyone does at some point. And the current circumstance with our new normality means we're trying new things every day, every week, trying to get to new norms. It means we're probably all going to face that at some point. If we take it into the networking world directly though, the same things apply whether we were on and offline. People still walk into events and are wondering, how am I going to look? How am I going to sound? Do I sound professional? Is it coming out right? Do people get what I do? Will they like me? Will I be credible? Am I going to fluff my intro? Am I going to come across okay? Am I going to be okay with the small talk? Am I going to get stuck with a complete idiot? Am I going to be able to get myself out the conversation, into the conversation? All those things that applied in the offline face-to-face world, which is the one I've been sort of operating in for 12 years, now are magnified in this online world. Everything's more intense. We're under that microscope. We know sometimes it's being recorded. We're in these little celebrity squares or little bubbles and we're being watched. And even if we turn our video off, then we're suddenly encouraged to turn it back on. In terms of social media and just sort of on LinkedIn, Facebook, any other social media platform, the posting times and the viewing times have all shifted. So where we were once visible and feeling comfortable about that networking, which, that networking went hand in hand with the event, the physical face-to-face networking, suddenly that's all shifted. We feel like we're speaking to people and are people tuning in and hearing our message anymore. So we've got all these extra sort of challenges, a complete necessity to upskill quickly and work out the technology. We're trying to balance that. We're trying to balance sensitivity about the current situation. We're trying to offer value, but balance it also with with still needing to be commercial and putting ourselves out there, but not offend anyone by being commercial. So I know people I've spoken to had a real problem with this. Do I still sell? Do I still say what I'm doing? Some people don't want to network at the moment. They don't feel right networking. They're not doing it. They're not doing it for the same reasons. And I think at the heart of a lot of it is we're getting all these new roles, and we're probably questioning our value and our purpose, because we are now not just workers, employees, employers. We've got active hands-on roles as being parents, friends, partners, and then we're still trying to sort of, networking. We're overwhelmed with the amount of choice online between all the events we can participate in. So there's all these behavioural sort of nuances. Everything's changed in terms of how much we've got to dive in. And the question, I suppose, the main question for anyone networking is, do they just sort of dive in on the virtual version of it and do that kind of fake it till you make it? Or, in Branson's words, if you get offered an opportunity, grab it, just do it, then learn how. And I would be suggesting that, yes, we do dive in and you give things a try. It's a perfect time now to be trying things. But remember just that we really need to kind of network in the way that it should have always worked, at a complete human level, just about being people. And we've been forced into that. We've all been put on a level playing field really now, where human flaws and interruptions and everything are there. We've got a much more of an honest dialogue rather than a kind of staged, organised kind of way of doing things. So that's kind of, that's I suppose, the scenario we're in. There's a whole number of things we can do in terms of working on our skill set and our confidence level. A lot of them were there already when we were physically networking. I love some of the points that Anna mentioned there. 3 of the things I've got on my list as well. The WhatsApp, the switching that off, absolutely. I'm a huge believer in that, switching off the mothers groups. The perfect way to bring your child up type messages. I'd say do it as well, obviously, with the business groups. If you're in any of these pods or networking pods, be really careful about how many of those are pinging you all day long with the amount of amazing stuff people are putting out, because that can really overwhelm as much as the mothers groups. And the virtual coffee you mentioned there, Anna, big believer in that. I've grouped a few of my tips together around networking confidence, and if I run out of time, please wave frantic like me, because I can always share a resource afterwards. But with networking, it always comes back down to knowing your why, and just as in business, knowing your why. And very few people spend time on knowing what their networking why is, to know why they were doing it. Are they joining a call for education? Are they joining it for learning? Are they joining it for support? Are they joining it for business and prospects and clients? That shifted. We're no longer really networking in the true sense. We're here now for, I'd say, support and learning and connection more than ever before. So I think we need to kind of reevaluate our networking why, to know why we're joining all these online events that have been thrown at us left, right and centre. There's some mechanical and practical stuff that can boost our confidence, and then there's also some head stuff and mind stuff. I think on the practical level, doing a lot of research and preparation. An awful lot of people scattergun their networking without researching what they're entering, what kind of event is it, what's going to be the format, how visible will I be. If you join a group like now and all 80 people have been on screen and you were asked to do your presentation of who you are for 60 seconds, you could be quite flabbergasted if you're expecting 5 people. So just like with any event, knowing what you're going to get and doing your homework around it, and being really organised, I suppose, around, you're joining up info. What platform is it on, and have you been on it before? And if you've never used Zoom or Skype or Teams or whatever, get on and have a play with your friends and family and just get organised before you dive in, because then you'll feel more confident about the fact you're going to be able to navigate the screen and know what the menus are and know where your camera is and your mic is and all those kind of functional things. So there's quite a lot functionally and technically and mechanically, just as there was in an event with your body language and where you hung your bag up and you held a cup of coffee at the same time as talking to someone and getting your business cards out. There's all that logistical sort of stuff around you now, but just on screen. There's some other things around, I suppose, your confidence and getting your image across with online networking, something I'd refer to as social profile consistency. We're all joining all these calls, we're popping up everywhere, and a lot of the time people are forgetting to check their settings, forgetting to check what name they're listed on. They're coming on as I joke, Jim Bob's wife or Sarah Jane's little brother because your kids have been on the Zoom before, or you know, you're all using different accounts or whatever. Just check that your name's popping up right and have a look through the settings. Settings are wonderful in any piece of software because they give functionality, and in a networking world, that's going to help with giving you better sort of accurate visibility. If you've got your name up there, it helps as an anchor point if you've got your true name in front of your picture, because the whole point of networking after all is that people see you and remember you and they see your name, etc. So there's some of that mechanical stuff I think that counts, but possibly more important is maybe the head stuff around confidence, because you know the whole imposter syndrome is thinking, well, am I good enough, or you know, being overwhelmed with you know, that sort of feeling of, oh well, can I really do that? And I think when I talk about sort of stripping it back to being human again, we have to remember the laws of networking on or offline are the same. We have to remember to listen before we speak, and we have to remember that selling isn't really what people want to have, and especially at the moment. We have to remember some of the etiquette around following up and having that direct conversation, and if we don't get the moment during a call or on screen, to take a conversation beyond the call, follow up, to message, to arrange lots of virtual coffees, as I would call them, your virtual cuppers, and making sure that you get a chance to chat to people and have a proper follow up, and really to do a lot of that, replace the body language stuff with virtual body language, to pause, to listen, to raise your hand, to add a comment or to chat, you know, in the chat box at the right hand side, so that you get fill some of those things that we don't get in person. And I suppose one of the biggest bits of networking advice around confidence levels is on that human level. It's remembering when you walk into a room, or a virtual room as we are now, it's about human equality. We are all on a level playing field, and this has been a real equaliser, the current situation. But even if we were back in walking into a room, you know, I've always said to people, forget titles and forget company names and roles, and particularly anything else like, you know, gender or anything like that. We are all on a level playing field as people, and just relate to people. Think of it as making business friends. And I think if we enter a screen in the same in respect, in terms of just resetting those expectations, resetting the bar to being all at the same level, take a step back, assess as we would assess and survey a room when we walked into a room of networkers, and just take a step back for a moment, see who's there, see who's saying what, listen, and then really start after that drilling down on who do I want to speak to, and have I got synergy with them, and who are potential members of my future tribes. You know, I'm a big tribe person in terms of having lots of support groups, and we need multiple support groups around us. That's how networking works. We belong to multiple networks, even the dreaded parenthood network, we belong to them, and we draw different support from them all. So knowing which ones we belong to, which clubs and allegiances we have, and making sure we reinforce them, look at every window, not just as boxes of speakers, but as potential members of future networks that we can join with, and make yourself accessible, visible, and try to do that follow up. I've got loads more, but I better just stop at that point, I think. Take a breath.
Yeah, that's been amazing, just in terms of sharing all those tips. I think I know you covered it slightly, I just want to pick up on one, because I think it's something that I've been asked a number of times, is around the body language and etiquette of being on like virtual calls and virtual networking. You know, when people are talking and you've got a point to add, or you want to add something or ask a question, and it's hard because usually within, like, when you're face to face, you have got those cues around, you know, like yes, and then go in. But have you got any advice for people that might be struggling or fearing that factor?
Yeah, it is funny, and it's actually, it creates quite a lot of humour on these calls, because through the mixture of either our internet connection or the fact that there's delays or whatever reason, we're not getting those natural pauses when you're facing someone. You'd know that, well, it's kind of right, you're finished, it's my turn to speak, or whatever, I can answer now. And it's trickier online because you sort of all start at the same time, and then you go, and then go, oh, can't hear you, or oh, can you hear me? Oh, you're muted still, and you've got all these points that are completely breaking our interaction with people. I'd say, you know, when I get people onto an event to start with, the first thing I do is get them set up and navigating the screen and knowing how where everything is if they're not familiar with the technology. Get the participants window open, see who's on the list, get the chat window open, get ready to put chat in there. Know the little emojis to put your hand up or whatever. Make sure you know where the mute button is to turn it on and off. Getting people familiar with the screen. And I think encouraging the chat function, I mean, there's times when it's not appropriate to have it on, but if people are ever feeling that they're not comfortable going to a networking event, say a physical one, I'd be encouraging them to have a networking buddy or to arrange to meet someone there. That can work online too. You can attend an event with a networking buddy, and if you don't have one, you could certainly make contact with whoever the leader of that group is, because they will always try and make people feel welcome. If somebody didn't know what to do, I'd make sure they were on the call earlier and we had a little sort of interaction first, and they knew where the buttons were and how they were going to have to press this, do that, talk, etc. But there's this functionality stuff, and then there's really that, well, at the end of the day, it's kind of crack on and practice as well. Practice makes perfect. And we're in an ideal situation at the moment to upskill, but also to get things wrong and to learn from getting it wrong, because people are very forgiving at the moment. I did an event yesterday where we invited the kids on, and the kids introduced everyone. All the partners, if they didn't have kids, and in one case actually a cuddly toy where the lady had actually pre-recorded a little audio clip of the toy introducing her because she didn't have anyone in the house. And it was like, right, let's take down those barriers and let's just have a play around. Let's be human, let's be fun, let's expect the interruption, and let's be forgiving, because actually the new norms are only just forming, and it doesn't matter if you get it wrong at the moment, but have a go. Have some self-belief. Don't let the neg ferrets and the networking chimp get at you. Just crack on and sort of have a go, because everyone will kind of let you off at the moment. And remember just to praise yourself as well, and sort of internalize what you're doing right. Go into a meeting really with the right frame of mind. I think if you warm up your voice before you start, that can help. And if you have, often a good thing is just to have had a conversation maybe on the phone before you join an online call, because you've just sort of warmed up, you've got into the mode of speaking and into the mode of kind of thinking about yourself. And if you were ever a nervous networker, think about the time when you did it, really enjoyed it, and it worked, and you're good, and sort of visualize that and think, I'm going to go in with it feeling like that, because we're all the same. We're in the same storm in different boats, but as far as networking goes, we're all logging into the same thing for the same reason, to connect with people at a human level.
That's brilliant. Loads of tips and advice there. Love the end one around networking buddy. We always say at Tech Returners, if you've not been to a meetup before, go with someone else. It just gets that friendly face there, and go into a room full of people that you don't know. So great advice there. So I'm just going to move on and talk about mental health. So Ngozi, there's no doubt lockdown has impacted mental health for some of us and our confidence in our careers. What practices would you recommend to address confidence issues and how to manage these during these uncertain times?
Well, you're absolutely right, Becky. There is no doubt that this pandemic and the impact it's had on our lives has had a detrimental effect on our mental health. As a business, over the last month or two, we've been working with lots of individuals who've experienced things such as bereavement, loss, trauma, that have all had an impact on them, that have knocked their confidence. And then the unexpected changes to the way we're all working, whether you've started working from home unexpectedly, whether you've been furloughed or made redundant, combined with the fact that we're all managing things like childcare or parent care or looking after vulnerable people, has all had an impact on the way we view ourselves and our ability, both at home and at work. And that's not even to mention the general sense of fear and insecurity that coronavirus itself causes. So there are a lot of reasons why we would be feeling less confident, less secure about who we are and what we can do right now. But there are people who have actually found their stride in this time. So it is possible to overcome these feelings of inadequacy and powerlessness that lead us to feel less secure. So there are a few things that we can do to improve our confidence and reduce our anxiety at this time. start with anxiety. That often comes from a lack of a sense of control. So what we advise our clients to do is to focus only on those things that they can control. So a really simple exercise you can do is the brain dump, and we've done it a number of times over the last 2 months with teams that we've been working with, and it's always very helpful. And all you have to do is set yourself a timer for 5 minutes, blank sheet of paper and a pen, and write down absolutely everything that is going through your mind. So whether it's work or home or personal, whatever it is, if it's a task that you have to try and remember, a dream that you had that's been plaguing you, if it's a worry that you've got about someone or someone else, just write it down. Don't censor yourself, don't think too hard about it. Just all the thoughts that come to your mind over the course of 5 minutes, write that down on a list. And what that does is it starts the process of allowing us to exercise some of the redundant things that we're carrying with us, because we'll be carrying a lot of things that we can't actually do anything about, particularly at a time like this. So it's great to just get them out of your mind on that sheet of paper. That's the first step to letting it go. And what we ask you to do is then to look at that list and really examine what you can control directly, what you can influence, and then all the things that you can't control. And the majority of the things on those lists tend to be things that, although they disturb us and they bother us, we actually have no control over. So at a time like this, lots of people will be writing things down like losing my job, the company going bust and me losing my job, or my parents catching coronavirus, or things like that. We have absolutely no control over it, but for obvious reasons, they're plaguing our mind. And what we ask you to do is, in fact, just stop focusing on it, and focus your energies only on the things that you can control, or the things that you can influence. So you can't control whether or not you'll catch coronavirus, but you can influence it by practicing social distancing and having good hygiene practices. So you focus on that instead. You can't control whether or not your company is going to go bust, but you can control how many hours you can contribute to the day and how many hours you can work. So focus on that. So that's a really great and simple tool for giving you back a sense of control in these uncertain times where we feel like a lot of control has been taken away from us, and it helps to reduce anxiety. And then in terms of confidence, it's good, just lots of the panelists have said it, just to remember that everybody is in the same boat. So we're all going through this uncertain, extraordinary time together, and that to me is great. That the fact that we're all on a level where many of us are feeling out of our depth. So that's something that you can start with. Anna was talking about how she has open and honest communication with her teams. I think that's an absolutely critical thing to do. Be open and honest about what your concerns are, what you feel your limitations are. Share what you can and cannot do with your teams, with your colleagues, your superiors, and ask them for their understanding. And I think for the most part, you will find that you receive it. When you're thinking about things like imposter syndrome and how to manage those feelings of I think that I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing a good enough job either at home as a parent, and I've got 2 small kids myself, so I completely understand. Okay, my daughter just said she's not small, but I completely understand those feelings of feeling that you're not good enough at either one or all of the roles that we're now forced to play. And so what I ask people to do is to follow just 3 simple steps. And the first one is to pause. So just because you're thinking it, it doesn't make it true. So just because you think you're not good at something, or you're not ready for an opportunity, or you're not good at virtual networking, or you're not doing a good job with homeschooling, doesn't make it true, right? And understanding and accepting that and allowing yourself to believe that is the first step to actually getting over it. And then the second step, to confide in someone that you trust, someone who you respect, who knows you well enough, whether this be a colleague, a friend, a partner, who you can be open with and say, these are the things that I'm worried about, these are the concerns that I have, and that who you can listen to and believe when they will go through with you whether or not those fears are actually warranted, whether those concerns are real or whether they're actually just confidence issues. And it's like Kirsty was saying about having a record of all the times you've done something well before and seeing whether this is something that is too big a leap and that you need to do some more retraining or get some more experience before you're ready for this next step, or whether it's just a confidence thing. So check with someone else and don't keep it to yourself, because fears tend to grow in the dark. And then you act only on that information. So act only based on the evidence. What has your analysis showed you? Do you need to go and reskill? Do you need to get more experience? Are you actually in fact ready and just a little bit nervous and uncomfortable? So that's what we'd say. And if it helps to come up with a reframe. So if you are used to saying things like, I don't think I'm good enough, find a different phrase that you can have running through your mind that says things like, I've done this before and I can do this again. Whatever it is, it's subliminal, it's simple, but it works. So that's what we advise people to do at this time.
That's some really, really great advice, and I hope that given people on the who's listening and who will be listening to the recording some really practical steps of actually putting it into action. I love the brain dump, the can control. I talk about it a lot around when we talk about it with our returners as well, and that belief of actually speaking to someone about it, because our thoughts can escalate in our mind. We can jump from A to Z without missing everything in between and going from right, okay, I'm feeling like this, and it just sort of like escalates. So actually pausing, sometimes we forget to do that, don't we? Pausing, yes. And then actually talking to someone, going, I'm thinking this, is this the reality of what I'm thinking? I think sometimes that I take that such a great example and something practical that people can do, especially during this time. Yeah, brilliant, thank you. So just moving on to Mary. So we don't actually know that there is a few weeks of lockdown left, but there is also now starting to be somewhat of a roadmap to some sort of normality, whatever that looks like. What's your advice for keeping hold of our confidence in this ever-changing landscape? I know speaking to quite a few people from the announcement that happened on Sunday, it's not what people were expecting. So people really have had battled with that whole confidence and anxiety over the past couple of days. So what's your approach for the next few weeks, and some tips and advice that you can share?
Well, some of what I'm going to actually say repeats some of what the other panelists have said today, because I think there's been some great advice out there, and really about focusing what you're in your control. What Ngozi just said there, I think that's so true. If it's not in your control, you can't do anything about it. But in order to really, I think we're fortunate in the tech industry that we're part of an ever-changing world. And right now, the pace is changing a bit faster for us. And there's a new, COVID's here. It's a new dimension that's come into our industry. But that constant change and having to deal with that is our normal world, albeit it's a slightly different dimension to it. So in our industry, I think we're better off than some others. I think for me, and what I'm trying to do, is to focus on the here and now firstly. So what can I do here and now, and what can I control here and now? And I'm talking a lot to people, and I would recommend talking a lot to people and sharing with people. So getting a gauge of, you're not on your own. Make sure you understand that you really aren't on your own, and people are having these same challenges, and we're all on a roller coaster as I see it right now. We're going up and down, and I agree totally, Beckie. On Sunday evening, I was really flat because I was expecting something so much more. And I put myself back into, well, when we set out on this journey of lockdown, you created a list of things you're going to achieve. Let's go see where we're at. And let's go and get on with that list and see what else we can now achieve. So I had a chat with a few people, we talked about it, and we shared together how we were a bit frustrated, a bit down, a bit challenged, and that helped me to get back into, I'm back in control again. I think it's different people, their moods can change and rise based on different things. Some people put some loud music on. We're allowed to drive again now. So if putting the loud music on and going for a drive in your car helps you to clear your head, bring some positivity and put you back in a positive place, do it. If for you, it's dressing up, putting your suit on. I put a dress on for the first time in 6 weeks the other day to go on a call and feel on top of the world. If that's for you, do it. You know, if it's doing your hair, whatever makes you feel good for you as a person. I put perfume on this morning. I've not done it for weeks. Just do it. It's the little things that will boost you, make you happy and positive, and get your day started well. So I definitely recommend that. I think going out for a walk outside in the fresh air is so important. Such a simple thing that we can all do in order to clear our minds, because there's so much going on in our heads at the moment. There's so much going round and round. Like you said, Nkosi, put it down on paper and get some clarity from it. And what I like to do when I'm going out there as well is, if I'm feeling a little bit down, I like to remind myself of all the great things I've achieved. I like to remind myself of the wins I've had, the impacts I've had, something positive, in order to bring myself back to a positive place. Because I think that really does bring the momentum back to make you realize it's not all bad, it's not all doom and gloom, and it's going to be great again, and I can make that difference. And sometimes I chant to myself. I go on quite a few growth courses, growth mindset, and if confidence was a big challenge for me right now, then I would, it's not one of mine right now today, but I would, if it was, I'd be going out there 3 times a day doing 10 chants. I am confident. I am confident. I am confident. And I would repeat it again and again and again, because it's what's in your mind that is making you realize whether you can or you can't achieve something. So if I wanted to get it back into me, I would drill it home, drill it home, drill it home. So I would do it 10 times a day, 10 times, 3 sets of it a day for 10 days. At the end of that, last year I went through a period where I was not fun at all, and I did it. I am fun. I am fun. I was laughing by the end of it. I was feeling fun. I was engaging and embracing. So if you want to bring something back, put it back into your head. Stop telling yourself you can't, you're not able to. It's negative. If you want to bring confidence back, put it back into your head first and start believing it. And you know, the first few sets, you're going to feel a bit weird. Do it on your own. Do it in a field where no one can see you. And eventually, do it in the mirror. Look yourself in the eye and tell yourself, I am confident. Believe it, because when you believe it, even if you only believe it that much compared to that much, when you start believing it, you will ooze it out of you, and people will see it in you and believe in you so much more. So you want to bring that confidence out, bring it out. Talk to yourself, tell yourself, remember the positive times, put the music on. You know, it doesn't matter who you are, man or woman, we all have low times. We all lose confidence at different times in our life. You know, when I think about when I went on my maternity leave and I got really bad imposter syndrome, when I came back, I was like, oh, I'm leading 200 people. How can this be? How can I be their leader? I'm all over the place. My head, I wasn't sleeping. How could it be? And I just needed to talk to someone, to tell someone, and for them to give me the confidence back, to remind me of what I'd achieved, to remind me of what I was able to do and that I can do it again. It's that little chimp in your head. It's funny that so many of us must be reading the same books of these, the good chimp, the bad chimp, the red chimp, the blue chimp, and what that chimp is telling us. Knock that chimp out and let's tell ourselves how great we are and put ourselves back on that journey, because I think the future is in our hands. It's in our control to go and deliver that future and have that great focus and achieve those great things. And I think we can do it. We've just got to remind ourselves and put ourselves back in that place. So yeah, talk to somebody. If I was to summarize, I would say talk to somebody. Absolutely talk to somebody. put yourself in a positive place, whatever works for you, with the music, the dressing up, whatever it is. Go for a walk and believe it. Tell yourself again and again and again and again until you really start bringing it out. Because you can say two things, you know, as a non-confident person, I can look down and I can say, yeah, I feel great today. Absolute nonsense. Whereas if I just look at the camera and say, I feel great today, the feeling other people get from it is so much. Well, you can just see it for yourself in me, you know, looking down versus looking up. It's there, it's impactful, and people will believe in you so much more. And then that will start building your momentum. So go build your momentum.
I love that. I want everyone who's on listening to this call afterwards, go off in your garden, in your house, and just go, I am confident. And we can all video it, and then we post it on social media, and then we can have a club around all these people shouting, I am confident. What amazing advice there. And I love the fact that you were talking around a couple of things around remembering those achievements right at the end, you know, those achievements. I do it right at the end of the day. So sometimes it's quite easy to go back to bed thinking about all the things you've not done and worrying about that, but go to bed actually thinking of the 3 things that I've actually achieved. It's making those small changes. I don't watch the news as much as I did do the first couple of weeks of lockdown, and making those changes so you've got more positive influences around. Amazing advice. Thank you all so much. We are coming up to the last couple of minutes. If you do have a question, we're not going to be able to have time to take them, but please type them into the chat now while I'm just wrapping up, to make sure that I can send them out to our panelists for some feedback to then share with the people that have signed on for the webinar today. So just really quickly from me, each session we do, we have been provided with free tickets to the We Are Tech City virtual conference that's happening in June. Our winner of today's ticket is a lady called Katie Robinson. Katie will be in touch with you in terms of how to sign up for your free ticket. Our next webinar is on Tuesday, very prominent, talking about growth mindset, following on from what people have been talking about today. And just a quick announcement from Tech Returners. Today we are launching Start With I. It's a 5-part webinar series designed to work with individuals to create clarity and confidence in just 5 one-hour sessions. More details will be followed up on the email with all the fantastic resources that we've got to share from our panelists. Thank you all again. Thank you to our panelists. It's been absolutely delightful to hearing in terms of your advice, feedback, tips, your story. So thank you so much, and thank you for everybody listening. Really appreciate it, and hope you can tune in next week. Thank you very much. Bye.